Welcome back to Your Hour. Joining me now is Jamie Whitfield, one of my favorite people. She is my assistant. She's also a recovering addict, and because of that, she is more than happy to share her experiences in order to help other people reach the same level of sobriety that she has, and I think that that's commendable. But today you wanted to talk about a couple of different things that have to do with recovery.
Yes, and the main thing is the essential skills of like effective communication and recovery, and the obstacles that we face as recovering addicts, early in our recovery are like with low self-esteem. It doesn't it allows us and to push people away,
Right.
and so communication there's a blocker, and being a perfectionist, it allows you to always worrying about what people are thinking, and puts pressure on oneself, and then the shame and the dishonesty and lack of boundaries and aggression as well are obstacles to effective communication. And so, with the five essential skills for effective communication in early recovery, and this also in early recovery, we learn a new way of life, and we also have to learn a new way of communicating with others for healthy relationships. And so, the first one would be assertiveness, like letting go of them familiar tactics as far as being manipulative, and replacing them with just being assertive, being able to say no or yes, and being okay with that decision that you've made. And then number two would be positive self-talk, and I find this very important in
I know you
communicating.
do it, and you do it out loud.
Because communicating with yourself, and turning them negative thoughts into positive ones, it just makes your life a lot better. And you actually, your mind could be, your voice in your head could be the worst critic on yourself. And if you can change that into positive talk, self-talk, you could be your best supporter and cheerleader at the end of the day. And I think that's very important
Yeah.
when it comes to communicating.
Well, and I think that's important for people whether they're recovering from
Exactly.
anything or not. You really need to be your own best friend and not your own worst enemy.
Well, exactly. And the communication skills can be mastered by anyone at any part and stage of their life. And that's just what's so wonderful. You can learn how to be a better communicator no matter if you're an addict or not, and it does give you, and what it gives you, it gives you empowerment and confidence, and it has less stress will await you in the future
Yeah.
by being able to communicate better with
Right.
yourself and others. And number three on the essential skills would be, reading the social cues. Sometimes communication doesn't have to come in the form of words. It's that nonverbal communication that's important as well.
The body language.
Yes.
Or the look.
Yes, the facial expressions, the body language, and it does leave the person on the other receiving end to have to like read between the lines, which I hate that. I would rather just someone be honest with me and just tell me what's on their mind versus me assuming or having to read between the lines. But you have to be able to look at them social cues to really fully understand another person as well.
So if I were to roll my eyes at you, would that give you a social cue?
Yes, it would. And number four would be to give and take. And that's important to me as well, because in relationships and communicating, it's a two-way street. It's not just one. And so that is when you have to listen, and then you have to also learn that if you want that person to listen to you, you have to listen to them as well when they need you, and show that same support that they've given you. And so I found that really important as well. And that does take some practice. All of this takes practice. I'm still working on being an effective communicator. And it does take practice, and it's not something that's going to happen overnight, and I'm okay with that. I'm aware of the things I need to work on, and so as the days go on, it does seem to work a little better for me to communicate. And then number 5 would be having empathy
Yes.
is a main one, and this is the fundamental human capacity, and we lose that in our active addiction to have empathy for others.
Yeah.
Because we're just so self-centered about our own selves and our own habit that we forget to how to be empathetic towards others. And so what helps with that, and what I have found that helps with that as well, is just being sharing my story with others, and having other people share their stories with me, and it has given me an empathetic ear as well for others, and lending that support for others gives you empathy for others.
Well, and on top of that, I mean, part of the empathy that you feel comes from the fact that so many of their stories are similar to your own.
Yes, it is. Their experience,
And
strength,
it's
and hope. Yes,
and it's very hard not to be empathetic
it is.
under those
Now,
circumstances.
if you're active in your addiction, it is hard to.
Yeah. Okay.
But in
I stand
recovery,
corrected.
but in recovery, it really helps knowing that you're not alone, and that there are other people that are going through or have been through the very same thing that you went through. Sometimes I have to, when I'm on a Zoom meeting or I'm reading the literature out of the NA, or something NA related or recovery related, I'm like, dang, how did they get my story in there? Because it's so similar or the same. And so I do think that does help with giving you that empathy back, because that's just a character deficit that we suffer from, is lacking that empathy when we are early in our recovery.
Yeah.
And not for everyone, so I don't want to push that off on everyone, but it does seem to happen very quite often.
Yeah. Well, it's like when Ron and I met, we met in an organization called Parents Without Partners, which is single parents, not necessarily through divorce, but the majority of them were through divorce. And everybody who's coming into the group is busy telling their story
Yes.
about how their divorce came about. And somebody asked Ron one time, they said, "How do you know when you're over it?" And Ron said, "When your story is as boring to you as it is to everybody else, you'll know you're over it."
Right.
And I thought, that sounds harsh, but it's
the
true.
truth, yes,
Yeah.
yes. And so these are the just a few. And actually, if you want more information on effective communication, you can go to addiction.com, and they have quite a few things and readings that you can read about there. And I also would like to give a special thanks to Miss Rachel. She knows who she is. I'm not going to say her last name. I just want to thank you so much for your love and support that you give me. She's no longer my counselor, but she picks up the phone like she is still, and I just want to let you know that I appreciate you.